Hi, I'm Demetria, a serial entrepreneur since 2004, and I'm happy to be your host. My goal on this show is to encourage women entrepreneurs of faith on your business journey and to help you gain business clarity as you turn your profitable passion into a plan of action. You're listening to the Her Business Elevated podcast, episode number 57. So today I have an interview for you. Meet Allison Baggerly, a leading expert dedicated to helping women break free from the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle and start building sustainable wealth. With years of experience and a passion for financial empowerment, Allison has transformed the lives of countless women by providing the tools and strategies needed to achieve financial independence. Allison and her husband were able to pay off over $100,000 in debt on 2 teachers' salaries while growing their family, and that is no small feat. So from the classroom to full-time CEO of Inspired Budget, Allison has been able to help thousands of women learn to budget, pay off debt, save, and invest for their future. So in this episode, Allison will share her insights on breaking financial barriers, creating effective money management plans, and investing in your future. So get ready to be inspired and equipped with the knowledge to take charge of your financial journey. And grab your notebook, a cup of coffee, and let's dive into this empowering conversation with Allison Baggerly of Inspired Budget. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Her Business Elevated podcast. I have today with me Allison Baggerly, and she is a leading money management expert, and she's going to be helping us get our money straight. So, Allison, thank you so much for being here today. So glad to have you.
Oh my gosh, Demetria, thank you for having me on. I can't wait to talk about money.
Oh, me too. We have a lot of questions about money. And on this show, we're entrepreneurs who are in different stages of our journey of entrepreneurship. So I like to address all the stages, and money management is really a big deal. It's a big part of getting ourselves situated for the future. And so we need you to come in and give us some advice. So thank you so much. And I would love to start by asking you to just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your family and your favorite pastimes that make you happy.
Oh my goodness. So my name is Allison Baggerly. I'm the founder of Inspired Budget, which was created on my sofa at 2 a.m. back in 2017. And I have a husband, Matt, and 2 children. And my favorite pastimes with my family is to explore nature. So we are a big family that loves going on hikes. Actually, no, my youngest son does not like it, but I tell him, we are a hiking family, so you will go on hikes and you can have ice cream afterwards. So we love to go finding trails, and there's not a lot near us. So we're going to Colorado next week. We like just getting out in nature, camping, and honestly, like disconnecting from the world, it feels like.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. There's so much pressure in the world, and just to get out and do something fun and relaxing and being out in nature. It's so good. It's a good reminder for those of us who are always in the office behind our computer. Get out and get some fresh air.
Yes. And especially if your office is in your home. Like for me, my office is in my home. So it's even harder to create these boundaries. So I found that when I physically leave my house and I'm out in nature, I can really disconnect from my business for a while.
Yeah, which is so healthy. That's what we need. And so, okay, so you're in money management. I would love to hear about your journey into this and what makes you passionate about the topic. I especially have a question about something I read on your website that you actually paid off over $100,000 on 2 teacher salaries. And I would love to know how you did that, because I know that teacher salaries need a little bit of extra, right?
Oh, yes.
So I'd love to hear your story.
Of course. So the fact that I'm here and doing this is a shock to everyone who has known me, because I love to spend money. So the fact that I'm helping people manage their money and feel confident about money, it really was nothing I had ever anticipated. I used to be a teacher. I was an elementary school teacher. My husband is a teacher. So combined, when we met and married, we were probably making around $80,000 to $85,000. So nothing to like write home about for two people who had college degrees and were out in the workforce. But we were thrown a change in our plan. It wasn't our plan. God's plan was that we got pregnant on our honeymoon unexpectedly. Wow. So at the age of 24, I got married, got pregnant, and had a baby all at the age of 24. I know. Wow. I don't recommend it, but that entire process of getting pregnant forced my husband and I to have a conversation about money, which we had never talked about money before. Money was very taboo in my family growing up. It was always met with usually a lot of arguing, and I didn't want to argue with my fiance or my boyfriend. So I figured just don't talk about money. Mm-hmm. And that led us to realizing we were pregnant, sitting down at this old kitchen table. When you're young, you just take any furniture that's handed down to you. And we were sitting at this old kitchen table with these mismatched IKEA chairs. And I remember looking up the price of daycare and realizing we don't have enough money left over every month to pay for daycare. We certainly don't have enough money left over for me to quit my job. And that's when we decided to total up how much debt we had combined. And we had over $111,000 worth of debt on those two teacher salaries. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this feels like a mountain. It feels like I'm standing at the bottom of this mountain and I have to get to the top, but there's no path that has been carved for me. I don't have my proper supplies, my hiking sticks. I don't know what on earth I'm doing, but I knew that the way to set ourselves up for success financially was by starting to budget and then pay off that debt that felt like it was just putting all this pressure and really, truly suffocating us. And so that's what we did. It took us 4.5 years. So it took a long time. We weren't that story that you find on Business Insider that's like, couple makes $80,000 a year and pays off $100,000 in 5 months. Like I feel like there's always these totally unrelatable stories on there. It took us 4.5 years. We were paying for daycare. We ended up having another kid along the way. So we were paying for 2 kids in daycare for a period of time. And we just continued to pick ourselves back up whenever we had setbacks on our budgeting and on our debt payoff journey. And after 4.5 years, we did that. And I thought that I would stick to a budget and pay off debt, and then I'd be done with it. I would wash my hands of this money situation and I would move on. And I would never budget again. I would never talk about money again. But during that 4.5 years, I became incredibly passionate about personal finance because I had never felt so much control and peace of mind and stability as I had during that time. And I couldn't turn it off once we reached that goal. I continued to want to talk about budgeting. I continued to want to talk about paying off debt and setting yourself up for success. And so that's whenever I decided to start Inspired Budget. It allows me to take my skill set of teaching and my passion for personal finance and put them together.
I love that. And you're helping so many people who are afraid to talk about it and think about it. Usually people are afraid to think about budgets because there's the unknown. It's like what you were saying earlier with not having the proper tools and not having a path that we can take that is familiar, and there's no one to show us the ropes, but you've been there, you've done that, and you're here to show the rest of us, like, this is how you do it. And so I would love to hear about your perspective on budgeting, because a lot of times we hear the word budget and we cringe and we think, oh, does that mean I'm going to be giving up so much of my life right now? Like, what does that mean exactly? A budget.
Well, if you feel that way about budgeting, and if you're like, I don't know if I want to listen to this podcast anymore, just stop. Hold on. Let me just preface this with, I felt that way too. I felt like a budget was a negative consequence for my decisions, my money decisions. And that negative consequence made me feel bad about myself. And who wants to walk around feeling bad about themselves? Not me. So I figured if I don't budget, if I don't think about it, then I won't feel bad about myself, which honestly is just kind of this Band-Aid approach. You're not actually doing anything to take any steps forward. So the way I see budgeting now and how I had to shift my mindset over time was around seeing as budgeting as it honestly feels like freedom to me. For
Mm.
me, a budget feels like it allows me to figure out what I want to say yes to that I love. And for a period of time, what I wanted to say yes to was paying off debt because I knew that sacrificing for a season meant I could live the rest of my life in abundance. And that season of sacrifice looked like sending our extra money to debt. But now we can send our extra money to our family vacations and, maxing out our 401k and retirement accounts and getting a bark box for my dog that I love so much. Like that little $30 per month subscription brings me so much joy. It brings him so much joy. And I'm able to do that and add that into my budget because it's essentially just a plan. It's me being able to be proactive instead of reactive with your money. Think about that. How many times in our life are we reactive when it comes to our money? We have to put something on a credit card because we had a blowout on our tire and we weren't planning to buy new tires. We didn't know. Our water bill went up more in the summer and we weren't expecting it, or our AC bill went up a bunch more than we thought it would. Things happen to us and we have to react. Whereas a budget allows us to be proactive and plan in advance. So that way, when things happen, we say, don't worry, I've got a plan for this. I'm not going to let it stress me out.
I love that so much. It gives so much peace and confidence to our lives. I know when I read the Bible, there's a passage of scripture that talks about considering the ant and the ant's ways. And so the ant's always storing up and always gathering what it needs for the winter in advance. And so I love that you're saying the choices we make today, those small sacrifices, after a while, we get used to making those sacrifices and they don't feel so sacrificial. It just feels like part of our everyday life, like a habit. And like you said, you started to enjoy the sacrifice, the momentary sacrifice, but later it's paying off and you guys are taking vacations now. And it's just, I love stories like that because it shows me the reality of what happens when you just, I'm using the word sacrifice again, but just sacrifice for a little while because that investment pays off in huge dividends. It's like multiplication for your future. So thank you for being that realistic story for us.
Thank you. And I want to say that sacrifice doesn't equal deprivation. I'm not about this deprivation life where I literally, even while we were paying off debt, we had no fun. You can't leave. You have to stay inside, close all the blinds so that way the sun doesn't come in and heat up the house and you have to turn the AC on. Like, no, it's not about deprivation. It's about finding that balance and saying, what am I willing to give up temporarily or say no to temporarily so I can say yes to something else that's more important.
That's awesome. I was thinking about some steps that we could take as we're listening to this today. There are things that we can do to create a budget that fits within our lifestyle. You just talked about lifestyle. So I'd love for you to tell us some ways that we won't feel like we're restricting ourselves.
Oh my goodness. This is a good one because I did it wrong at first. And if you've ever written a budget that you feel like within 3 to 5 days, you just have to throw out the window, it's because that budget was likely not realistic. You see, sometimes when we sit down, and I don't know if you've ever done this, Demetria, just with anything in life, maybe it's a plan for your week or your habits. You want to, I'm going to get 9 full hours of sleep each night, but your kids stay up until 10 and you don't want to stay up after, you want to wait till they go to bed. But I remember sitting down and being like, I'm making this budget for the perfect version of Allison and the perfect version of her family, the version that is never going to be tempted to spend money, the version that's always just in the perfect mindset. And that was false. I was making a budget for a version of myself that did not exist.
It does not exist. Exactly.
And that's when it fails. So what do we need to do? The first thing I would say is to be able to write a realistic budget, you need to know yourself inside and out and know your spending habits. So often we ignore our spending habits because we worry that they will bring us shame or guilt, and we spend money and we're completely unaware of our own spending habits. So you need to know where you're actually spending money so that you can create a realistic budget. Here's an example. let's say that you are sitting down to write a budget and groceries are expensive and you saw someone online that cooks dinner at home 5-6 nights a week and they spend $500 a month on groceries. You're like, I can do that. But you didn't look back at your past grocery spending. If you had been tracking your grocery spending and you see that, oh, in the last month I spent $1,000 on groceries. If you write a budget for the version of yourself that spends $500 on groceries, that version of yourself doesn't exist. It only exists in your imagination. So by going back and saying, what did I spend money on? How much did I spend on groceries last month or my business or whatever? You can say, okay, I have something to work with now. Now, can I lower that number by $100 a month or $200 a month and slowly get to where you want to be instead of doing this like super drastic measure that's based on a version of you that doesn't exist? Go back and look at your past spending. How much did you spend on groceries? How much did you spend on restaurants? How much did you spend on beauty and getting your nails done or whatever it is you want? Or for like my husband, it might be, how much did he spend on grilling? He buys like new things for his grill or store things. He wants to buy a new, I don't even know what he's buying. Something to make our yard look better, but it looks the same. I'm just saying. So how much are you spending? So that way, when you make a plan, it's a realistic plan.
Exactly.
So it first starts with knowing yourself really well. And that looks like tracking your spending and knowing what you're spending money on.
Tracking our spending. So it means we have to study ourselves and our habits. And, putting ourselves under the microscope is not easy. It's like if someone else were to tell you, oh, yeah, I think you're spending too much in that area. We're going to be offended, but we might believe them over the fact that we're actually the ones looking in on ourselves, but we need to be accountable to ourselves. And I love that you're talking about something that's it's doable and it's about tracking. And it's also about, you said, we don't have to be restrictive of our lifestyle. Once we figure out how much we're spending, we can cut back in increments and not like just,
Exactly. So
do something drastic.
Exactly. I want to say you said something that made me think. You said that we have to like work on ourselves. Basically, we have to do that. How many of your listeners right now have ever purchased a course or a product or coaching membership to make their business better? How many of any moms listening have read parenting books or listened to parenting podcasts to make to help their children, help their parenting be better? We do this for so many other people, yet we forget to do it for ourselves. We forget to study ourselves. We study how we can do so much for everyone else. But we have to be able to study what we can do for ourselves. Yes. And taking care of your money is a form and version of self-care. You are saying yes to your future self. So look back and study and track your spending and know yourself. And then the second thing that you need to do is you need to look at all of your expenses. You can just print out your bank statement or your credit card statement and look at it and say, okay, I can't have everything that I want in life right now with my money if I want to reach a certain goal, and that's okay. What am I willing to say no to so that I can say yes to something else? Here's an example. I'm willing to say no to a really nice car, to a car that like my car is paid for in cash. Could I trade it in for a nicer car? Could I get like a really nice Tesla that my 11-year-old really wants me to get and have a payment on it? Yes. Right. I could do that, but I'm willing to say no to that because having a housekeeper come to my house every other week is more important to me. I value that more than driving, I'm fine with my little simple Kia. Yeah. I value that more than I would driving a really nice car. Yeah. That would come with a car payment at this time in my life. So look at all of your spending and say, what brings me the most joy? What am I willing to let go of, even if it's temporarily, or cut back on so that I can spend guilt-free on the things that bring me joy and start sending money to my money goals, whether that's paying off credit cards, tackling student loans, setting up an emergency fund, putting more money into your business each month, or saving for retirement.
Yeah.
By being really having your values clear and being in line with your values, those decisions are so easy to make.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Prioritizing where's what's more important to us, and
Mhm.
asking ourselves those questions. And like you said, tracking what we're doing and then setting goals, very, very clear goals. So I
Yes.
love that it all kind of leads to saving and investing. Do you have any
Yes.
particular tips about investing? Because I saw that, of course, you and your husband were able to get out of debt and you were able to move forward
Mhm.
with your money management skills, but you're able to now save money and
Mhm.
invest money. So how do we get to that point?
I think that first off, we get to that point by changing the system.
Yeah,
That's a lot to say. Like, I don't know, Demetria, did you learn about money in school?
absolutely nothing about
No.
money in school.
And I want to just come on this podcast and say that learning about money, how back when we were children, I'm guessing that whoever is listening to this podcast is likely an adult,
Yeah,
was a privilege in life.
right.
It was a privilege. You had to, our parents, I think about my parents, think about your parents. You had to either, because it wasn't taught in schools, you either had to have someone that was a guide in your life teaching you or teaching your parents and giving them advice and teaching them,
Mm,
which means they needed to have access to someone who had the
right.
right information that wasn't targeted. There were specific communities and cultures that were targeted and preyed upon, being
Yeah,
taught wrong information about payday loans, about all of these things,
exactly.
right? Just like the redlining that went on, everything. So you had to have access to someone in your life that would be willing to teach you and that was teaching you something of value, or you had to realize, hey, I need to learn about this, which means you had to seek it out for yourself. You had to know what articles to read in a newspaper. You
Right.
needed to know to get books from the library, what books to read, how to get a library card, how to read in English,
Yeah,
because these books weren't written in other languages. So I'll step down from my from my TED talk, but
that's
I will
good.
just say that learning about money for
Yeah.
our parents was a privilege. So when our parents, I used to have this like resentment. Why didn't they teach me? How did I end up here? But it's like
Mm,
they did the best they could with what they knew at the time.
that's right.
And the fact that we now have access to the internet opens so many more doors to us
Yeah.
than our own parents had.
Yeah.
So take that as your privilege. You might still not have parents that can teach you. You might still not know what books to read or understand every word in those books like I didn't, but you have access to the internet. So
Mhm.
I would say when it comes to learning how to invest, it was built by white men to teach us that we are not capable.
Yeah.
We need to keep you in your spot. You need to hire us to help you so that we can take your fees, and you don't need to do this yourself. That is a lie that was built off of rich white men. Sorry, I'm just
Yes.
going to say it.
Oh, that's good. And it's right.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And it's not like that anymore. In fact, a rich white man created a system for people that for anyone to be able to invest. So not all rich white men are bad, but many of them are. Anyway, all of that to say is that we have to be willing to learn, and we have access to the internet. So that can look like, when it comes to investing, Googling words that we're not really sure about, listening to podcast episodes, listening to different podcast episodes of different people, being able to start asking ourselves questions, going to HR and saying, what do I have access to? Or if I'm an entrepreneur, I know I can get a solo 401k, and literally Googling, what is a solo 401k? How does it work? Going into ChatGPT, asking some questions there.
There you
Not
go.
everything might be correct in terms of like contribution limits,
Right.
but
But
or
it's a
picking
start.
up picking up
Yeah.
books to read. The last chapter in my book, Money Made Easy, focuses all about laying a foundation so you can start investing. And it comes down to choosing to spend time, even if it's just 15 or 20 minutes a day, to work on understanding that, so that when you're ready to take that investing step, you do so with confidence and you know exactly what you're investing in.
Exactly. Oh, I love this. I could go on and on listening to you, Al. This
Sorry.
is fabulous. And these things need to be said and brought to the table because these are issues that we've dealt with for years and years and years and years. And it's a perpetual cycle unless we break it. And a form of self-care is educating ourselves.
Yes.
And so even if we weren't raised in homes where we were taught money management and financial literacy, we can learn and we can pass that down to our children and the next generations and create that legacy. So I love this idea of we're not stuck, we're not limited, we are empowered to make new decisions for our future and for our families. And I feel like all of this that we've talked about today it's about habit forming. It's about making a decision that we're not stuck. It's about saying we can learn, we are capable. We have all the resources and the tools available. Sometimes we need a guide, right?
Yes.
Someone to help us. Right. And that's what you're there for.
Yes, exactly. There are guides out there that I love working specifically with women because there's so many people helping men. I love helping specifically women learn how to make themselves just have that peace of mind. Have the peace of mind. You can go to sleep well. You can tell your kids when your kids come to you and say, Mommy, can I get this? You can say maybe not this month, but we can add that to the budget next month. That is one of the most empowering statements I have taught my children.
Love that.
It is because then they realize okay, it's not in the plan now, but it can be in the plan later. And we're in a situation where we can make that happen. Yes. So it's just, and when you're willing to do this for your personal finances, it bleeds into your entrepreneurial life too.
Yeah.
And it bleeds into your business finances and you're able to start making more clear decisions on your business money whenever you have your personal money taken care of.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So everything we've said today has been so encouraging. You've already invested so much into us, but do you have any additional words of advice or encouragement? Just kind of like your last words of encouragement on this show for our listeners today.
Okay. So I'm going to say I have a book. It's called Money Made Easy. And I think so often in life, we have been taught to believe that money is hard and that there is this hurdle, there is this speed bump we must go over. Here's the deal. It doesn't have to be hard. Let it be easy.
Yeah.
Let it be easy. It doesn't have to be a struggle working on it. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be daunting. It can be fun and it can be easy. But to let money be easy for you, whether that's in your personal life or your business life, you have to be willing to work on yourself and work on it. Work on your money. The more you work on your money, the easier it will be. And it doesn't have to be this consequence in your life. It can be a joy that empowers you and brings you peace of mind, security, freedom, and just happiness. Money can't buy happiness, but money can give you peace of mind.
That's right. I love that. Great. Allison, tell us where we can find your book. How can we get that?
Absolutely. So you can grab my book at Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Amazon. If you're like, Allison, your book is on Amazon right now, it's on sale for $20. If you don't want to spend $20 on it, call your library. Tell them, I want you to get this book, Money Made Easy by Allison Baggerly. And if you go on Amazon, there's an ISBN number. Tell them that. Have them buy it for you. And then you check it out. You can grab it there. Check your library. If it's not there, ask them to get it in. That's one thing that I know librarians actually appreciate.
Yeah.
And authors appreciate it too.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. Give us your website so we can come directly and see you and all that you have to offer for us on finances.
Of course, my website is inspiredbudget.com. I also share real people budgets and real investing tips over on Instagram at Inspired Budget or TikTok at Inspired Budget. So I'd love for you to connect with me there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison. You have been so helpful to us today, so encouraging, and we're ready to get our money straight. Thank you.
Yay, thank you, Demetria.